Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Did you know that there were two classes of people back in Jesus' time that Jesus really didn't like at all? First group, Pharisees. Second group, Sadducees. Do you remember about the Sadducees? What was it unique about the Sadducees that we used to learn about as Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, I'm going to show you. With the Sadducees, they didn't believe in a resurrection. So all their trickery and trying to catch Jesus out would have been about that subject, the fact that they didn't believe in a resurrection. So they cited something that Moses had said about if. Let me show you. So it's there, verse 23 of chapter 22. So on that day, the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came and asked him, Teacher, Moses said, if any man dies without having children, his brother must marry his wife and raise up offspring for his brother. Shall I just get out of the way or just push it a bit higher? That'll do. Now there were 7 brothers with us. The first married and died, and having no offspring, he left his wife for his brother. The same thing happened with the second and third through all 7. This is a little trickery exercise that the Sadducees had set up for Jesus. And it just goes to prove that they weren't interested in truth. They weren't interested in supporting the kingdom that Jesus Christ was preaching about. All they wanted was to find an angle to bring Jesus down. So, verse 27, last of all, the woman died. So in the resurrection of the 7, whose wife will she be? Whose wife will she be in that resurrection? For they all had her as a wife. And then Jesus floors them, doesn't he? In reply, Jesus said to them, you are mistaken, because you know neither the Scriptures nor the power of God. For in the resurrection neither do men marry, nor are women given in marriage, but they are as angels in heaven. Now, when I was a young lad, this is something that I did learn, that if I was to die and then be resurrected, it's likely that on my resurrection, I won't be able to marry anybody. The other side of Armageddon is something that has always stayed with me, and it was because of this scripture. So that's the very sad Sadducees, because they don't believe in a resurrection. But earlier on, the Pharisees had conspired. In verse 15, then the Pharisees went and conspired together in order to trap him in his speech, because that's what it was all about. They thought, right, that the Pharisees thought that they were so versed in the Mosaic law. But what they hadn't realized is that the Father in the heavens had grown tired of the burdensome Mosaic law and was in the process of having it superseded by the 2 greatest commandments. But the Pharisees were too stiff-necked and too pig-headed to see this as early as that. So that's why they set this trap out for him. So they conspired together in order to trap him in his speech. So they sent their disciples to him together with party followers of Herod, saying, Teacher, we know you are truthful and teach the way of God in truth. You can just imagine how surreptitious and how serpent-like they would have said that phrase. It almost makes me want to vomit, because they're certainly not being truthful there. They are just slime balls, those Pharisees. Horrible, nasty people. Obviously working for Satan and looking for an angle to bring the Son of God down. I've interrupted you. I'll need to get back to it now, don't I? So he says, and you do not seek anyone's favour, for you do not look at the outward appearance of people. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay head tax to Caesar or not? This is their little trickery lesson. Oh, this was marvellous. I mean, they would not have expected this. There's just no way they would have expected this answer. It is an amazing, amazing response. But Jesus, knowing their wickedness, said, and he did, he knew their wickedness, he knew what they were up to. Why do you put me to the test, hypocrites? So there's no love lost between Jesus and the Pharisees. There's no holding back. There's no point in trying to even get on with them. Let's just call them as bad as what they really are, and that's hypocrites. So he says, show me the tax coin. And they brought him a denarii. And he said to them, whose image and inscription is this? They said, Caesar's. Now, do you notice how marvellous teacher Jesus is? He engages them, you see. They don't know that they're being led to a dead end with this conversation yet. But he engages them. He gets them to speak. And so they say, Caesar's. And then what does he say in reply? Then he said to them, pay back therefore Caesar's things to Caesar and God's things to God. And it's the famous quote, right? We've heard it thousands and thousands of times. When they heard that, they were amazed. Were they amazed, or had he put their nose out of joint? Because they really were looking for an angle, weren't they, to trap him? But the scriptures say that they were amazed and they left him and they went away. I bet when they got in closed doors afterwards, the Pharisees, they would have looked at each other and they would have thought, how did he do that? How did he just turn it round like that? Did we not just fall into the biggest trap ever there? Now, if that was me and I was up against someone with that kind of intellectual ability and spirituality, I would want to know more about them. This is just how I am. But they're not interested in that. They're just looking for an angle to bring him down. That's what it's all about, that one. And then after that, right, the Pharisees get to hear about how he dealt with the Sadducees and about the resurrection issue. And do you think they were going to call it quits? Do you think they were going to say, let's just leave it for now, you know? Let's go away and sharpen our claws and come back another day? No, they wanted to have another go, didn't they? And this is it here. So that after the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, in verse 34, they came together in one group, conspiring. They got their stiff-necked minds and hearts and thought, we've got to get him somehow. How can we get him? And this is when they talk about the commandments, isn't it? Because the Pharisees were so rigid, unmovable on the Mosaic law, and they were so quick to jump down anyone who they believed and perceived has broken that law. Well, this is great. So one of them, versed in the law, tested him by asking, verse 36, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? He said to him, you must love Jehovah, this is the New World Translation, your God with your whole heart, with your whole soul and with your whole mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. The second, like it, is this: you must love your neighbour as yourself. On these two commandments, the whole law hangs, and the prophets. Can you see how they could not have been expecting the fact that he's saying, forget your burdensome laws, the Mosaic law, forget it all. It served its purpose, for the thick Israelites that left Egypt. They had to be given ABC instructions because they were too stupid. So we had to give them, this is just me saying this, obviously Jesus Christ wouldn't have said this, but read between the lines, people. That's why they were given all those burdensome laws, because they were stupid people, not very intelligent. That's why they had to be told, do not put your waste with your food. Do not do this, do not do that. You see how at the time the God in heavens knew that these 3 million people leaving Egypt really had to be told every little detail what to do, as if they were just like babies, 2-year-olds. That's why they were given those laws, and it served its purpose. But at the point in which Christ is now saying that the two greatest commandments are these, and that the whole law hangs on these two commandments and the prophets, what do you think he's doing? He's saying to them, don't listen to the Pharisees. Don't listen to them, because all they're doing is keeping you steeped in traditions that are going to cement you, keep you rigid. But your Father in the heavens had recognized this, and that's why he took all these burdensome laws away, did away with them. So this is now going to lead to another question now. Should we keep the Sabbath? Is the Sabbath a forever law? If the Father in heavens at this point now has told Jesus, from now on, please tell people that these are the two laws that you need to obey, and forget what's been before. Forget them all. Because I don't want my people to be oppressed with so many laws, and then have hypocrite leaders reinforce those laws like the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And that's why, as your loving God, I have decided that you only need 2 laws. But if you keep these 2 laws in the way in which I have written down in the scriptures, it will almost incorporate all those other burdensome laws that I gave the Israelites. But I had to give it to the Israelites because they were just too stupid. I'm sorry, but they were. They were a stupid, thick race. And stiff-necked. And they just had to be given baby instructions. I mean, I had to laugh about the excretion law. I mean, do not poo where your food is. I mean, come on. But they had to be given those laws. Because they couldn't think for themselves. Just couldn't. And that's why Moses virtually had to wipe their bums the whole time. And what did they still do? They still disobeyed God. Yeah. Well, there you go, people. It's an unusual way of explaining this, but I can't think of any other way, and I don't see why people today still follow old Mosaic law. When Jesus Christ and the Father in the heavens was saying, no, you don't need to, because I've given you 2 other laws. But they do, because People like, I don't know, people like to just box themselves in. Oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. But it's this God in the heavens is a loving God, and he understands that these were no good after a time. It was robbing people of happiness, having the Pharisees constantly watching people and holding them over the coals. And that's why Christ didn't like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, because he knew that they pretended to know the law, and with them there was just no give. There's just no give at all. They were so straitjacket like type leaders. Horrible, really. Can you imagine belonging to a religious order and you can't do this and you can't do that, and maybe you want to do a charitable act and it just happens to fall on the rest day, and you want to go and help an old lady or do something not for yourself but for something else, and you have like a stiff-necked leader who sees you and reproves you because you've gone and done a charitable act. But the thing is, I think it was pointed out by George, that these kind of acts, charitable acts, and what Jesus did, healing, that's not classified as work, is it? That's not work. If you're doing that from your heart, you're not profiting. But with the scribes and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they just couldn't see that. There was that example, weren't there, where the apostles had plucked the heads of grain and then they blew the chaff off, and they were seen by the Pharisees and held to account over it. But that's not a loving arrangement, is it? That's not the God in heavens. He says, serve me if you want. I ain't forcing you. I'd like you to. Because I want to save you. I want you to survive, but I'm not going to force you. I ain't going to put a straitjacket on you, make you worship me. Free will. We've all got it. I do love this account, though, how he just shut them down. Completely shut them down. They just went away with their tail between their legs, didn't they, each time? And they must have been fuming when they got inside their houses. Fuming. He's done it to us again. How does he do it? How does he always turn the tables on us? Yep. You can see how they're working for Satan, and they're not working for the Most High, those Pharisees. Horrible people. Anyway, I am rabbiting on. I'll see you again.